Welcome, everyone, to It Tastes Different Gaming Podcast, the podcast with four different flavors coming from four different gamers. I'm your host, Nick Irwin, and I want to welcome my co-hosts, Shane Eisterhold, Patrick Smith, and Russell Rowe. Hey, Patrick, where can they find us?
Well, the first place you should check out is our website at ittastes.different.com. This is the place where you can subscribe to all of our streams and connect to all of our social media sites. You can also find us on Facebook at It Tastes Different. We're also on Instagram at It Tastes Different PC. And then last but not least is Twitter, where you can find us at It Tastes Diff.
On the menu today, we reheat the ravioli and have a second helping with Mafia Definitive Edition. Mafia, the original Mafia, came out in August 29th, 2002 on Xbox, PS2, and Windows PC, and it was developed by Illusion Softworks. This new one, the Mafia Definitive Edition, came out at September 25th, 2020 on the same consoles basically, except for not the old versions, but the newer versions of PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and again Windows PC. Now this new Definitive Edition is no longer created by Illusion Softworks, but is now developed by Hangar 13 and published by 2K Games. 2K Games basically says that this is a remake of the Mafia game. First, I'm going to go ahead and go over to Russ. And Russ, you want to give us your take on this remake?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's better called the Definitively Dull Edition. It feels like a 2002 game. If they're saying they remade the game, I mean, just graphically, maybe a little bit, mostly. I mean, the cutscenes were pretty clean, all that good stuff, but it plays exactly like a game from 2002. The mechanics are very clunky, very heavy-handed. I mean, you start to drive the vehicles pretty much right off the bat. You are all over the place. There's no, I mean, it is a very difficult thing to get used to at first. As the game went on, I got a little bit more used to the driving. I about had a coronary during the motorcycle portion of it. I think I actually had to step away for a few minutes on that part of it there on that chapter. This storyline was very dry, very plain storyline. If you've seen any mobster movie, it's just a rendition of that. Which, I mean, I know they remade it. Maybe I'm giving them a little bit. Maybe I'm being a little bit too frustrated within that, just because, hey, that's why we love mob movies, is because of that kind of that kind of storyline. So I maybe I should not be so hard on the storyline, but at the same time, it was very dry, and sometimes I even found myself skipping a scene because I knew what was going to happen. The mechanics of fighting, of being in that third person kind of first person type of shooting just was not very fun in some cases. Now, I did kind of find a sweet spot for a little bit and started headshotting some people, and after I kind of got figured out how those mechanics work, that kind of helped just a little bit. But all in all, it was I mean, it was a dull game. I would say that it wasn't the worst game I ever played. It definitely not even close to the best game I've ever played, but kind of had some feel of GTA meets a different storyline meets no decision making. I think that's where probably my biggest disappointment in the whole game is that there were times where they could have put in some choices for us to make the story just a little bit better. The scene with Frank, the fact that we just let him go, just to let him go. Well, I really would have loved to have the decision on whether to pop a cap in him or let him go. It kind of those little moments within the game would have been kind of nice to have, but that's why I call it the definitively dull edition. So I'm going to swing this over to Patrick and see what he thinks of it.
Well, I will tell you that your favorite part of the game is an addition to the game, the motorcycle stuff. The motorcycle stuff wasn't in the original, so you have the definitive edition to thank for the motorcycle scenes. Because you couldn't do the motorcycle in the original one. I will say the game looks pretty. They did a lot of graphical stuff with it. Basically, they built the game from the ground up using the same engine they used in Mafia 3. I will say, in my opinion, they did a remake of this, but they stayed true to the original game, in my opinion, too much of a fault. That's too much of a fault because the combat and the driving and everything, just as Russ said, felt like 2002. It was bad. It was a slog. I have not played that bad of a driving game in a long time because it is basically a driving game. They bill it as like an action RPG, action adventure, excuse me, not RPG, action adventure game, but you driving a good chunk of the time, and the driving is the worst part of the game. Obviously, the combat's pretty rough. Basically you have to use cover mechanics and to pop out of cover, and you're basically when you pop out of cover, you're kind of blind firing. Your reticle is like who knows where. You don't know where it's going to be when you pop up. Which is all akin to the old 2002 style games that if they were remaking this game, they should have basically updated the combat and the driving, in my opinion, because that's the downfall of the game. It looks pretty. The remake, basically, they remade the city. They basically remade most of the city of Lost Heaven to look more like 1920s and 30s America, during Prohibition. So they did really good with that. I just think the biggest part of an issue of the game was it just felt like I was playing a game from 2002 because driving sucked. Combat was annoyingly hard when it shouldn't have been because of the game mechanics. And the game had quite a bit of bugs in it. And I just finished it up this last week. There was plenty of times where I would rush a scene real quick and go in and just like pop the people that I was supposed to really quick, and the game would act like it was confused. I'm sitting there going, all right, there's nobody left to do, but the game is not progressing. It's not advancing to like the story arc part of the game or the cutscene because I bum rushed the combat and killed people too quick. So I found myself having to restart multiple times at a checkpoint just because of that type of stuff. Not game breaking, but just annoying because I had to slow myself down sometimes. But yeah, very generic Mafia story. You got Tommy Angelo's the main character, and then you got the Don Saleri, who is your boss. You're a cab driver, and you get brought in. So for me, it was a middle of the road game. I played the original, thought the original was good back in 2002, and then this one here just reminded me of the 2002 game with the facelift. And they did some the voice actors also they got replaced. They did a whole new voice cast and everything for the game. So middle of the road game for me. Shane, what do you think? What did you think about this game?
I don't think I could agree any more with you and Russ. It breaks my heart that they call it a remake, and it's not. It's a definitely a prettier game, much prettier. But they left, just like you said, they left so much of the gameplay and everything from the original version. They could have made a lot of changes, gun control, weapons. Those were big issues with the game. The first race scene you had to do, I mean, how long did that take you, Pat?
I almost quit because of that stupid race car scene. I almost gave up on the game right then and there. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this crappy driving.
Yeah, and to its defense, it was probably pretty tight comparatively at that time because, I mean, even till now, GTA doesn't have the best driving mechanics, but it's still 10 times better than what they were doing with this thing. Granted, you had a different a vehicle mentality because the vehicles are supposed to be older, get going a little slower, blah, blah, blah. But it definitely too much from the past was left in. A remake should have corrected issues that they should have known were going to be issues, especially the story. The story, I don't think they really did enough to make it worthy a remake name. It really isn't. The story, they've added some stuff, but not much. The voice acting, I do believe, if I remember correctly, is better, but it is absolutely generic. You take every movie Robert De Niro's been in, Joe Pesci's been in, throw their voices at it, boom, that's what you got right here. You have the typical whiny, drizzly-nosed Vinny guy. You have the typical, I'm a boss, blah, blah, blah. Then you have the typical, completely generic bad guy. They could have done so much more. but it's not a terrible game. If you never played the original, play this one. You'll be frustrated with mechanics, but it's worthy playing. It's not worth playing for more than $20 though. It really isn't. I would like to have seen much more work done to the game. If they're going to call it a remake, I wanted to see, tighter controls, tighter gun mechanics, tighter vehicle mechanics. I would love to have seen them do just something more with the story instead of keeping it so cheap and cheesy and, atypical gangster crap. That's my biggest issues. I didn't remember even playing it really until I got to one scene in the game. It's like, oh my God, I remember this. And then I started remembering everything else because it's been so long. And it's like, oh my God, I am so bored. Every time this person speaks, I want to fall asleep. It didn't give me any reason to keep playing because it is the same game I played, 18 years ago, whatever the heck it was. But I like I said, I think it's worth a $20 game. I think it's worth playing at $20. But, opinions are like buttholes. What do you think, Nick?
Yeah, I agree with you guys for the most part. It's an okay game. It's an okay story. Like Shane said, it's a very mobster story. You've seen or watched mob movies before. You're pretty much going to get the idea of what's going to happen and what's going on. So, there's nothing new or surprising there. Just like you guys, the driving was horrible. I mean, later on in the game, you do get faster cars that can maneuver better. And, these are cars from the 1950s, so, they probably don't have the best handling and various things like that. But it was just, you're kind of used to Grand Theft Auto and the way that those cars drive, and then you kind of play this, and it's like, wow, it's really hard to turn a corner, or you just swing too wide, or you're running into stuff a lot. And so, or they go really slow, and sometimes, like I said, later on in the game, you do get faster cars, so they do go faster, but the cars you start out with are incredibly slow. So it's really kind of hard to get used to that. And the gunplay for me, it felt like if I didn't pop out and get a headshot, if I was just shooting them in the body or missing, and it didn't put myself in cover enough, I was just going to get gunned down. And that was all there was to it. So it almost felt like to me like either headshot or nothing at all. And so that's pretty much what I went for 90% of the time, because doing body shots, it takes way too many shots to the body for an enemy to go down. Depending on what you're using, like a handgun, it takes way too many. If you have a shotgun, it just depends on how close you are to the enemy. If they're right in front of you, a shotgun to the front of them is going to take them down. But if they're far away, yeah, you can take them. It may take a couple shots or more with a shotgun to take them down. Then you have guys, it's only in one location if I remember correctly, but there's guys, and they may come up in a couple other locations, but I remember where you're going to the docks and there's guys up in the water towers with sniper rifles. And, they don't give you a sniper to shoot them down with. You have like a handgun and you can't get any closer because all these guys are crack shots. They'll hit you right. As soon as you pop out of cover, your head's blown. So you really just kind of sit there and kind of pop out of cover and shoot them with a handgun and just hope that you're going to hit them because your rectal is just moving around everywhere, all the place, and you just kind of shoot and hope that the bullet hits its mark. So that's kind of the way I felt about it, and I would agree with Russ too. I wish it would have gave you more choices. There was a lot of scenes in the game where it felt like they were going to give you a choice of what you wanted to do, because it kind of opened it up to where, this scene, yeah, maybe, this would be right for a choice in your decision, what you're going to do and how the story's going to go. But it doesn't. The story has its linear path, and that's it. So, it is what it is. It's a Grand Theft Auto type style game. I mean, if you've played Grand Theft Auto or Grand Theft Auto, that's pretty much what you're getting here as far as that style of game, open world, action adventure, driving cars, shooting, stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, it's an okay game, and like Shane said, at full price, maybe not, but if you never played Mafia before and it goes on sale or something, you might get frustrated with mechanics and stuff, but you'll probably have a pretty good time playing through it. Overall, it's pretty fun in the most case. So that's what I thought about it. Now, one thing that I wanted to ask you guys and we'll go around the room here. What was the most annoying mission for you in the game? Because I have one that I want to talk about, but I want to see what you guys thought. So we'll go back. We'll just start back around the room and go back to Russ. Russ, what was the most annoying mission for you in the game?
I mentioned the motorcycle one, but that actually, like I said, I stepped away and I came back and I got it done. That wasn't really the mission that I think I almost, had a coronary on. I think the mission that I had the coronary on was probably Sergio, killing Sergio. Like, first off, you had to keep up with Sergio. Then, somebody breaks down and like cuts you off. You have to traverse the traffic for a good portion of time just to get to the docks. Which, I mean, I understand that they want to kind of extend that story a little bit, and they want you to drive it. Well, the problem is the AI would like throw this car right in front of you at this certain time, and so you'd lose them. Well, then once you get to the docks, well, then you've got to go through like 40 people, and which is fine and dandy, but like you said, sniper rifle versus 44 or 45 or even a 38 stub nose. I mean, who's winning in that battle? That one there probably did it over for me, in the fact of like, I just need to push through this. And that's pretty much what I did for that one. The other scene with the final scene, I think I got to the point where I just totally went in Rambo style, and I was just like running at people, shotgunning them in the face and getting away with it. So definitely the docks for me. Patrick?
Well, I'm going to say there was 3 that almost made me quit the game. The racing scene drove me absolutely bonkers, because that car drives like freaking butter on a hot plate, basically just slides all over the place. I think I ran that mission 6 times before I finally beat it, because I just got so sick and tired of it. I had to step away. And then the next one was the stupid scene with the armored truck, because I was playing it, I was just shooting the armored truck, and I'm like, oh, I gotta shoot this truck, and just keep playing it over and over, and it would blow up, and I'm like, what is going on? The truck blew up. Okay, yeah, we want to kill it, right? So that thing died like probably 3 or 4 times before I finally read it. I didn't even read it, but listen to the guy. He's like in the back saying, "Shoot the turret," and I'm like, "Is that what I'm supposed to do?" So I shot the turret, and finally the scene progressed. But I don't remember how many times I repeated that when I walked away from that one, because I'm like, I am shooting the truck, but it's blowing me up after like two restocks of my ammo, or it's blowing up. And then the scene that I left the game and came back to was the stupid airplane takeoff scene where you're trying to shoot the engines out of that dang thing with the Tommy gun. Oh my god.
Oh my god, I forgot about that one. Oh my gosh. I think I forgot that one because I wanted to forget about it. Like I wanted to forget how that made me feel. Oh my gosh, I completely forgot. Sorry to interrupt your time, but oh my gosh.
Yeah, driving in the car while Paulie's driving. I think it's Paulie driving. And you're trying to shoot this stupid airplane that's taking off, shoot out 2 of its engines with a Tommy gun. I was like, are you kidding me? This thing is bouncing around and jumping all over the place, not to mention the stupid Tommy gun can't hit the side of a barn. I ran that one quite a few times, and then I was like, I got to step away. I was getting so mad. And then I came back and tried a couple more times, and then I just realized that, you just have to burst fire the Tommy gun. That's all you can do. It's like trigger pull, let go, trigger pull, let go, trigger pull, let go. But it like cuts it down to the wire. It gives you hardly any time to blow up that plane. So that was it for me on those ones. Those 3 were the ones that I almost quit the game over. The racing scene, I left for a little bit, came back. The truck turret, the same thing. And then shooting the plane, I was like, I'm going to go make dinner. It's a bad scene when I'd rather go cook dinner than play the game. So what about you guys?
Oh God, for me, the plane scene definitely, but for me, the absolute worst was not really a mission. It was a mission, but not really a mission. After that first race that you almost threw your Xbox out the window for, it was that little scene at the end of that one where you had to walk around and try to find Polly's drunk butt. Just walking and walking so slowly around through all those people. It only took 4, maybe 5 minutes at the very, very most.
Did you not realize you were playing Mafia the Walking Simulator?
Oh my God. It's like, am I carrying a ball and chain? Do I've got a lead weight hanging out of my butt? I mean, what in the hell? Why can't I run? Why is everybody just watching me and everybody's staring at me? It was so annoying to be just. I hate games that force you not to just walk, but to walk super slow. And it just kills me, especially when you got to listen to a bunch of drivel you don't care for. You just want to get through the game. That was absolutely annoying. But my other one, since you threw out three, I'm going to throw out one more. The very first gun scene you get into, the very first mission you get into, where you got the gunfight, you drive out of town, you're doing a pickup, collecting some bills, and dude, like, shoots.
The brothel scene?
No, the brothel, the one where you go out to like the hotel out in the middle of the nowheres. At the very beginning. Your buddy gets, the one dude gets shot,
Yeah.
and
That's
then
one
the
where the
other
guy's
dude's
on the
held
toilet
hostage.
behind you.
Yes. That scene drove me freaking nuts because I kept dying. There was like always some dude just randomly popped up beside me or behind me. And then when I finally got to the door to open it to save my boy, what happens? Nothing. The door won't open. There's one other dude floating around here. I'm walking around. Guess where he was? Toilet.
He was dude in the bathroom, yeah.
Dude in the bathroom. I was just freaking livid. And normally I could get through that kind of stuff a little bit better, but I don't know. I think I'm more mad that they could have fixed things like these. They should have fixed things like these.
Dude, man.
They didn't.
He ate the spaghetti and meatballs. He really had to go. He heard all the gunshots and gunfire, but he wasn't getting off that toilet.
Look, man, you come and shoot me, but I cannot get up. I am not dying with a pants full of SpaghettiOs.
Yeah, he just had to finish. He wasn't coming off that toilet until he was done finishing.
No. He's like, no, thank you.
He
But
just had his shotgun in hand.
Yeah.
Toilet paper in one hand, his shotgun in the other.
he had a double
Pants around
barrel
the
on the
ankles.
toilet.
Pants around the ankles with a gun pointed at the door. Just a
Oh,
grunt.
yeah. All right, Nick, what about you? What I know you're really excited to tell us what peeved you off so bad.
So I'll go ahead and throw out two. The first one is the barn scene where you got to go get, I think, Sam in the barn, and then you're up in the loft of the barn, and you have to protect him from the police. And it's just like gobs and gobs of enemies come in with shotguns and everything, and you have, by this time, because you've shot your way up there, and there is an ammo crate to the side, but they don't give you a ton of ammo, when you pull ammo out of there. And the cops just keep coming, and you just got to fend them off until a certain point, until the scenario kind of plays out. And that one I had to do a few times because they would just. There are several ways up to you. There's a staircase. There's a ladder up to you. They're shooting you from below, and like I said, they're all crack shots. So that one just annoyed me because I think it's just the gunplay in general annoyed me because it was just like you had to just headshot everybody that came in there, and there was windows and everything like that. So that one was an annoying mission. But the one mission that made me so mad when it was over was the stealth mission. Now, I hate stealth in these types of games, even GTA. I hate when they put stealth in these types of games. They just, you're not making a stealth game. Don't put it in there. But they have this one mission where you have to steal a box of cigars, the crate of cigars in this warehouse. They pull up, you have to steal the truck, which is easy. They pull up with the truck. Polly and Sam go off, and they're like, hey, go in and find the crate. And you're like, okay. So you have to sneak your way in. You can't get detected by anybody. And you got to first find information to find out where this crate's at. So you go into one warehouse. You find the information. It says the crate's in the next warehouse. So then you got to sneak your way over there. And then once you get in there, you find information as to which crate in which section of the warehouse the crate's at. And you're like, cool. So it's on the other side of the warehouse. Of course it is. Right? Then you get over there, you open up the crate, and then it tells you to open up the door, which is right next to the crate. And when you open up the door, that's where you pulled in. to the warehouse.
Yep.
Made a big circle.
Yeah,
Yep.
and I'm like, we could have just opened the door. It's literally the crate by the door.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my, that was the part where I was like, I had to sit my controller down. I'm like, seriously? We went through this whole thing to find they're like, you found it? It's like, I would have been like, yeah, why, you guys been sitting out here the whole time. You didn't open the door to see if there was like crates behind it. Oh my goodness, that just annoyed the crap out of me. That's my one. That one just, I was like, seriously. I mean, stealth again in these types of games is always bad, but the fact that the crate was behind the door where you start the mission, but you can't go through that door. They don't let you. They want you to go through that whole thing just to circle back around and go out that door.
Yep, go all the way around back. Go all the way, make a big giant circle, go through the whole facility, and then come back.
You know what? I think Nick wins the this tick me off section of the talk.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a remake to a fault, is the way I would say this game is.
Yep.
They kept the wrong things of the game. You could keep the story, you keep the story and the premise, but you don't keep the mechanics, especially if they're almost 10-year-old mechanics, because game mechanics evolve because technology evolves. But right now you're keeping mechanics, and that's what I'm hearing from everybody is the driving and the combat mechanics. They kept those from the original game, and they weren't the best. People played the Mafia series for the story, and story is a typical Mafia monster story. You're a Don. You're not Don. You work for a Don. You work your way up through his ranks. You start out as the driver, and work your way up to one of his capos and stuff like that. So it's definitely one of those things. It's a decent story, but it's a typical mobster story. But all the mechanics, in my opinion, should have threw the mechanics out and started over fresh with better.
Oh, absolutely.
Better combat, better driving.
When I see a game like this, when we have a game that's published like this or comes out like this, especially, I would say in the last 2 years, I'm not going to push it back and say, they should have this particular mechanic that I'm about to talk about exactly right 10 years ago. But now in today's day and age, in the games that we've seen released, even if it's a remake, while you are walking and making a turn, you should not be, as a person, you should not have to take a turn like a dually truck. For example, going up the stairs. So if you cut the stairs a little short and you have to kind of go around the left side of the corner of it, you end up walking past the right side, and then you try to come back, and you literally have to stop, turn your body, and then go straight up. That simple mechanic right there, that mechanic of like turn radius, I cannot fathom for the life of me why that is not fixed in a game like this.
Yeah, it's very reminiscent of the original Resident Evils. It's just like driving a tank when you're supposed to be driving a person. It doesn't seem to make sense in this day and age.
All right, yeah. It's I honestly, playing through the game, the current cast, in all honesty, the guy who played Paulie was my favorite cast because he had that typical nasally Italian mobster swagger and sound to him. So he was probably the best part of the remake, in my opinion. I thought his character was great.
Oh, absolutely. Just because he was atypical, but he was that one part of every gangster movie that made a gangster movie fun.
Yeah, and that was Paulie. Paulie always making the wisecrack remarks, but he had that typical, the typical shtick, if you will, the nasally Italian guy with a really thick accent and the really enunciated, way of talking. And so he was probably my favorite part of the remake, because they basically had to redo all the voices because of the way they do facial in video games nowadays. They basically record the person talking so they can impose the voice over that, so the voices wouldn't have matched up if they didn't do a complete voiceover. So they used new cast to do voiceovers for this one. So, and like I said, Paulie was probably my favorite. For the most part, most of the other characters were pretty forgettable to me. Sam was easily forgettable. Sarah was okay, you know. I barely, I just played this game I just beat this game maybe 3 days ago. I could barely remember what Don Solari sounded like, and the same thing with Don Morello. So, I those people were backstopped, and the only reason I kind of remember the way Tommy Angelo was the main character sounds is just because you play him all the time.
I wish they would have. I don't know. I think there was so many ways they could have tweaked the story, even the original story. They could have added new dialogues to really make it more updated. Because it felt more like, do you remember, oh God, Home Alone? Watching that old gangster movie? That's what it was very reminiscent of.
Keep the change, you filthy animal.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I mean, I think they did remake the game from the ground up, but I think they stayed too true to the original and kept the bad game mechanics that they should have gotten rid of. They should have gotten the better driving and the better combat. It's been a while since I've played Mafia 3, but I don't think the combat and driving mechanics were this bad. So they could have used that engine and remade those items and used the mechanics from Mafia 3, because it's like I said, it's been a while, but I'm pretty sure I don't remember getting so mad at the driving and the combat mechanics of Mafia 3.
Yeah, see, now I haven't played 3 yet. That one's on my honey-do list. I really want to check that one out because it got really good reviews, if I remember right. And it looked very interesting. I like that it was a little more modern. It's got that whole, I believe it was Louisiana they're set in.
Yep,
You can feed people
bayou.
to gators. Yeah, you can feed people to gators. That just screams fun.
It's in the bayou, yep. And so this one's set in the 20s and 30s. So yeah, the Mafia 3 is much newer than that.
One thing about this game that I felt was kind of strange compared to because I compare it to GTA and stuff is the world's pretty lively and there's a lot going on, but there was never a time where I felt like I needed to, or that I wanted to explore the city.
Right? Yeah, they have the free roam mode, that's what kind of kills me about games like this. There's so many collectibles, and there's no real good way to find out where they are. You supposedly run up against them throughout the story, but there's a free roam mode in the game to where you can go back to the main menu and free roam the city and stuff. But yeah, I never felt like I just wanted to. You never had that free time to go do as GTA and stuff, just go do free activities. Because the game is kind of precursor to some of that stuff. I mean, it is from 2002, and they did do some of that stuff in the original Grand Theft Autos and stuff. But this game basically didn't have free activity. It was pretty much an action adventure game with a lot of collectibles, but no free. But the free roam was very limited.
Yeah, there was really nothing that made me go, ooh, I'm going to go check this out. It was all like, eh.
Yeah, I didn't do it neither. I was just focused on going from one story arc to the next. And I was like, okay.
Too. That's pretty much what I focused on too. Like I said, unlike GTA and stuff and more, I guess more of the modern open world games like this, this one really just, they had there's a lot of people on the street and cars and things going on, but I never felt like I wanted to explore the world. It was just getting from point A to point B and being done with the mission, and they keep the missions coming. Like you said, there's no free time. GTA is where, once the mission's done, you kind of out there in free roam, and they tell you to go here to start your next mission. And this one was more like just mission's over with. Okay, we're starting the next one. So they kept, they just kind of kept you progressing through the story like that instead of you trying to go out and free roam yourself, which you can do, but again, there's really no incentive. There are some collectibles that you can get out. You get a lot of them through the story, but there are some that are just out laying around here and there. But like you said, Pat, there's no real easy way to find them unless you just want to use a guide or something.
Right, you have to pretty much run up on them before they show up on the minimap.
The thing about open world games is Ghost of Tsushima ruined me for a lot of these older ones because Ghost of Tsushima to me is the way you said, and it's just a lot of barren areas, but I loved the exploration in that game. I love just cruising around on my horse, checking things out. The way they did it, open world in that game compared to what they've done in the older games, just like I said when we reviewed Ghost of Tsushima, is there's so many things that I love about the way they set up the open world and the side stuff. I wish we'd see more of that. And playing a game like this, it's old. It's an antiquated setup for an open world game. Even Grand Theft Auto has progressed beyond what it was in 2000s.
Right. I think they spent too much time on the wrong parts of the game. I mean, to be honest with you, I didn't pay too much attention to the town and the scenery of the city. I was too busy driving away from people or getting shot at or trying to lose the cops to pay attention to what's going on around me. As much time as they spent on redoing the town, they don't give you much opportunity to just like explore it. They pretty much go from one mission to the next without any like go here and do this and do that and take your gal to the movies, or what they do with some of the more modern style games is do activities in the map and in the day world, and when you're ready come back and pick up the story. There isn't quests in this one. It's just pretty much a very linear story driven game, which is fine, but as much time as they spent on the city and redesigning and remaking the city, because that's where they spent all their time, it seems like, is polishing it in the new engine and redesigning and remaking the city to be more like a 1930s America, USA. So they spent too much time on the wrong things, because I didn't enjoy the city because I was too busy playing the game and not paying attention to all the scenery going on around me that they spent all this time on. So I think they wasted their time. They should have fixed the mechanics before spending any time on the polish and redesigning the city.
People need to look at what's done wrong when situations like this before they, because when this game was being fixed or remaked or whatever the hell they wanted to call it, other games came out and did what they were doing, but they did it so well. They should have took the lessons from them, and they didn't. Just like you said, they just played with the wrong stuff. That's it.
Yep. That's my take on it. They spent too much time on the scenery and not enough time on the actual gameplay. They needed to update the gameplay, because when the game came out, it was a good game. I will admit, I played it. I played all three of the Mafia games, and I thought they were good when they came out. I was looking forward to the remake because I was told it was a remake, and so there's new voice acting. They've expanded the story a little bit, but the driving feels like 2002. The gunplay feels like 2002. It doesn't feel like gameplay, 2002 gameplay. It doesn't feel like a modern remake of a game.
What would be one thing you think that they actually did accomplish well with this change to the definitive edition? What's one thing that you think, this is what they were trying to do and they did a good job with it? Wow, nobody talk at once, because I know it's that hard.
Well,
I was thinking about it. Yeah. I was thinking about it myself, and it's really, that's the only thing I can see that was really accomplished was the graphical overhaul. Nothing else. Not story, not gameplay.
But even the cutscenes were barely okay. I mean, they were good, they were solid, but you compare a cutscene with something else that we've played most recently, whether it be Ghost or what have we played lately that's had some good cutscenes, or like any Final Fantasy game that we've played. I mean, like the cutscenes. I mean, Final Fantasy 15 is what, 2 years old nearly now, and their cutscenes are better than this upgraded remake. And of course I'm playing still on my Xbox One, or on the I'm a step below you guys, but even still it's like the cutscenes didn't even engage me that much. They didn't make me go, oh yeah, that's really cool, that was a great cutscene. No, so when you ask that question, you're like, yeah, we are going to kind of stutter and be quiet for a minute, because we know what they upgraded for, but that was just to get it to playability for 2020 now, or not even playability, but visually okay for 2020. Now fix the dang game, because the original came out in 2002. So you know what they changed? They moved the 2 over 1 digit. That's what they did with this game.
Yeah, I agree. I was quiet because the only thing that they did that I mean, obviously the full voiceover, redo voicing and stuff, and characters are pretty good, but it's the graphic overhaul. And I'm a graphics snob, and I thought it looked like a pretty game, and it was it was definitely upgraded in the graphics department, but graphics can only do so much for me. And for anybody. I honestly, after about the racing scene, I just wanted to finish the game so that I could review it. At a certain point, I just was like, come on, get it over with. I played it to get it over with so that I can review it in its entirety. I didn't play it for enjoyment. If I was playing this game to not review it, the racing scene would have been where I quit. I would have just stopped and been like, I'm done. To be honest. But since we were reviewing it, I'm like, I push forward and I push forward. And that's what I kept telling myself. And then, you would get to some cool scenes. The whole scene, I enjoyed the boat scene where you're on the boat, and the prison was kind of an interesting one as well. But in all, it was just it was a mediocre game for me, and it was for a game that has you the majority of time, you're doing one of two things: you're driving or you're shooting. Those are the worst parts of the game,
Yeah.
So I don't have the good things to say about this game. And the voice acting was pretty good. The story, expanded story, I thought was very interesting. But like I said, I know the story. We already know the story. It was really hard for me to answer that question, but it's the graphics will be about it. I just got done harping on they spent too much time on redesigning the city and upscaling all that stuff. And then I'm like, well, what's the best part of it? And it's graphics. So the part I harped on that you spent too much time on.
What about you, Nick? Anything that actually was accomplished besides graphics?
No.
Nope.
That would be what I would say too. Yeah, I mean, as far as like you guys said, the gunplay, the driving portions are pretty much what they always have been as far as that time period. And I remember games back then, and yeah, that's pretty much how it was with shooting and the driving and the gunplay reminds me of that old game, The Getaway. Remember that?
I used to love The Getaway.
Oh my goodness, the driving and the guns in that game though were horrible. That was the only thing. I mean,
the game was good.
The game was good as far as the story goes, but everything else in that game, the driving and the guns, which is really what they kind of focused on, was like probably the worst part of that game. But yeah, the graphics. I mean, the game's really pretty. It looks nice. I think they did a really good job with the graphics.
Well, I think the biggest takeaway, and I think Patrick nailed it, was just they weren't focusing on what they should have been. Not everything is about graphics. If they'd have put 30% of their time of that into those controls, the game would have been much better. Because there was no reason they couldn't fix it.
I don't know how they ignored that, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, New Haven forbid if it's raining in the game.
Oh yeah.
Well, you're not driving anywhere, but you're driving there sideways if you are going somewhere.
Yep.
But for a game that has your only two interactions are you interacting with people, you're shooting people, or you're driving. Two of the three of those things. Yeah, two of the three of those items are lacked attention by a long shot.
Yep. One thing I hate about these old games too, and GTA's used to be the same way as well. They've gotten a little bit better in this, and so have games in this type of setup and genre. Is I hate that every mission you're like the Lone Ranger, right? You go out there and it's just you against 500 people, and it's like, where's the rest? I mean, we're a mob. Where is the rest of the mob? Why am I the only one out here, like killing half of the other mob or the police? And, Tommy, or not Tommy, but Sam and Polly, they're supposed to be there, but who knows where they're at? And they're not shooting anything. They're gone somewhere. Something happened to them. Their car drove off the side of the road and they're fixing a flat, whatever. And so you're the one up there. And I understand you're the protagonist, you're the main character, but still, I hate when mission after mission, you're like the Lone Ranger out there just doing everything by your lone wolf.
Well, that's why they call you Tommy. I don't need no damn help, Scagly Eddie. You don't need no help.
He should have just started his own mob. He'd be his own Don, and he's the only person in the crew.
But yeah, I agree with you. There's only like one. I think there's only like one time in the entire game where you're with Sam and Polly, and they're helping you. I mean, because like the scene you were talking about in the barn, you meet up with them, but but the whole combat, every combat situation there, you're by yourself. When you get jumped, when you're just you're investigating the whiskey truck, and then when you back the truck when you go up to the truck in the barn, you guys are all it's just you. You're protecting Sam while Paulie runs off and gets help, and then was it the scene at the airport? Is that the one? I'm trying to remember. There was one scene where Paulie and Sam are with you for like very short while.
It's when you go to get Sergio, when you initially go to get Sergio before you get onto the motorcycle to chase him. Whenever,
that's right, yeah.
When you go in there and they literally are like walking into the corner of the wall and if they kill anybody, they may kill one person, but they're just standing there and they're just getting plowed by bullets and you're like, wait a minute, if I stand up, I'm dead.
Right. They're the bullet sponges. And I let them be that too. There's plenty of times I was letting them get shot. I'm like, they're just a bullet sponges. I'll just sit back here and take people out that are focused on Sam or Paulie. It is what it is. I mean, they did what they did. I mean, we got the trilogy, so we're going to get to play the other games in the remake. I'm not sure if they remastered or remade the other two. Obviously, I don't think they did anything but maybe remaster 3, which I've talked till I'm blue in the face about that. We just did our remaster remake podcast, and I so wanted to blast this one in there, but I'm like, I got to save it for the review. So,
we've had the last few games reviews have been a little rough. So hopefully the next game we review, we can all come in at least 3 out of 4 smiling.
Well, we better. Russ picked the next one, so.
Yeah.
Blame it on Russ. When it all goes awry.
If it's not the next one, it'll be the one at the end of the month.
Oh my God!
Yes.
I'm not gonna talk
our
about
special. It's our special review. Special for Pat.
I'll be joining you guys. Like, what was that movie with Michael J. Fox? Was it Frighteners?
The Frighteners.
Yeah.
I love the Frighteners.
I'll be the guy in the afro. The ghost in the afro, hanging out.
I love that freaking movie.
So I mean, yeah, we could probably beat this one down, but I mean, this game didn't impress me, and I felt like it was a slog to get through for me, because all the stuff that you do in an action adventure game, driving and shooting, were bad. So
yeah,
they were, as Nick said, headshot or don't waste your time. If you shoot him in the body, It almost, at certain points, it almost made me want to go into the menu and turn on the high aim assist just because I got so tired of dealing with it. But I never did, because I was like, I can't get any achievements if I make it on the easy mode. So I never did dumb it down. But you can turn the aim assist all the way up, and it'll pretty much just like snap to their head every time.
Yeah, the the biggest problems with the game is the biggest problems you should not have with this kind of game. And that sucks. But I will say I can recommend it if you never played it, and it's $20 or under.
Yes, it's definitely it's a good story, in my opinion. It's worth a playthrough if you've never played it. If you've already played it, you remember what the shooting and the driving was like, so you probably don't need to play it again unless you could get a really cheap copy.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else got any points they want to add to this one?
No, I think we've covered it all.
All right. Well, we appreciate everybody listening and hope to catch you on the next episode.